Let's talk about the elements of success. We've talked about preparation. And when we think about the other ingredients of success, many people will include being motivated. We've talked about that, and having a positive mindset. We've talked about that as well. What are the other ingredients of success, and where does discipline fit into this?
Randy, I believe that you've got to be able to make fear your home. Fear has got to be present in your life. Fear shouldn't be a factor that would influence the way you do things or think things. Fear would just awaken your alertness to what's actually happening. And that's the moment that you cannot sleep. That's the moment that you've got to start focusing. That's the moment when you find the solutions. So fear becomes my home. Fear is something that I love. I understand fear. If we speak about fear, what are people afraid of? Let's take a simple example of kids. They don't want to walk into a room that's dark. They're afraid of the dark, but they're not really afraid of the dark. There's something else they're afraid of. Are they afraid of somebody hiding underneath their bed that would come out and maybe injure them? Or are they afraid of walking into the cupboard or standing on a toy and fall or hurt themselves? By understanding what they're afraid of, you can actually deal with that fear. So fear becomes my home. I accept it. That's where I live. And if I'm not living in that life of fear, I'm not at my full potential. And fear is just simply not knowing what's going to be the outcome. Now, fear is something that becomes your home. And then in life, if you want to reach excellence, you can't only do what you love doing. You've got to start loving the things that you hate doing in life as well. Because the moment that you love what you hate doing or don't like doing, you broaden your life. And then you can reach excellence because you're capable of operating on a much wider playing field that opens your mind to be able to reach goals that you couldn't reach before, because you're not only doing what you like doing, you can do what you don't like doing as well. And by using those things in life, you actually go out there and live a much broader life.
You've had all these incredible successes, but I want to talk about failure, which is something we all face many times in our lives. What you do is often life-threatening, and despite some incredibly close calls, you're not reckless in accomplishing your goals. There have been times when you've had to turn back and abort your trips. To name a few, you had to abort your first attempted solo crossing of the North Pole when you were only 5 days away from reaching your goal because you made the mistake of taking your gloves off and experienced severe frostbite and have to have 3 of the tips of your fingers amputated. You've attempted to summit K2 3 times. For our listeners and viewers who don't know, K2 is located on the China-Pakistan border. It is the second highest mountain in the world at 31,532 feet. On your first attempt in 2002, you left base camp at 4 a.m. and 36 hours later, with only 1,300 feet to go, you had to give up because of a snowstorm and snowdrifts that prevented you from breathing or seeing anything. You couldn't even see your feet. When you made the decision to turn back, you knew that the ascent was only half the battle and that you still had to make it down the mountain within a short window of time and go through something called the death zone. It was your birthday, and you thought to yourself that you couldn't die that day, which was a good decision because an avalanche killed 2 people from teams who continued toward the top. You said that turning around might be seen as a failure by others, but that true failure is dying. For you, breaking boundaries is the fine line between failure and success. You've also said that failure can be beautiful and that you value it more than success. Why is that? And how do you define failure? Why shouldn't we hide it? And why is making peace with failure an absolute requirement of success?
Randy, if you know the perfect person that never experienced failure in life, I would like to be introduced to them. So, as success, failure plays a part of our life. And for me, climbing K2 3 times, the way that I choose to climb it solo, without oxygen, without ropes, without camps, climbing from base camp straight to the top, is making it as difficult as it possibly can be to climb a mountain. Now, there's a bigger chance of failure, but I'm not choosing an easier method to succeed. I'm choosing the method where failure is the overpowering. There's more chances of failure than success. And why is it important to be able to live with failure and to openly admit that you failed? Is because then people can't speak about behind your back and said he failed. If you come down and said, I failed, I didn't get to the top, but I tried and I was alone up there. The others failed to leave base camp. Then let's speak about the level of success or the level of failure in a way. And that in the level of failure, I was the most successful. And in many ways, we don't deal with failure right. We see it as being ashamed. But you mustn't be ashamed of trying. If you make, like I said earlier, the same mistake twice, then yeah, you can be kind of embarrassed about failure. And if you're not learning from others or listening to others to not make the mistakes that is so visually put in front of your eyes, then we try and hide failure. So my father told me again, when he gave me that freedom, that failure is part of success. And the more you fail, then the more successful you become because you're trying. And the moment that you're trying new things, it doesn't mean you need to fail and pay with your life. That's the moment that very close to the summit of K2, I decided that if I go further, I'm going to die. And I will never have another opportunity to climb. And the moment you get back to base camp and you look up, you say, I'm alive. So coming back to base camp alive might be seen as failure for others, but it's success for me because next year I can come back and climb again.